and he couldn't help the way his mind traveled down a road he'd been on before. One with Leighann Drummond. He'd been married to her before, but that had lasted only 4 years. She'd ended things with him just before his devastating ACL injury, and he hadn't spoken to her since. Well, until last spring. They now worked at Whiskey Mountain Lodge together, and she brought out a tray of something scrumptious and beautiful after every football camp he did. He'd asked her for her number twice now, and twice she'd either said no or been distracted enough not to give it to him. He had it through the group texts that came from the lodge, but Morris didn't possess the courage to use her number, which she had not given to him, for personal use. Despite what his brothers had suggested, he hadn't done it. He wouldn't. "All right," Trace said. "Let me go change." Morris whooped and then drained the milk from his cereal bowl. He washed it out and set it to dry in the rack beside the sink so he wouldn't leave dishes for his brother. He collected his keys and grabbed the gift he'd gotten for Misty and, well, whoever she was marrying that day. Morris steeled himself to get recognized, especially if Trace was going to be with him. He'd lived his whole life in the shadow of youngs older than him. Tex had been like a god at Coral Canyon High, and Trace a prince. All of the Youngs towered over 6 feet tall, and while Blaze and Jem had excelled at sports, so had Morris, eventually. He and his twin Gabriel were the youngest brothers, and everyone had sort of forgotten about them. He said sort of, because the more time he spent with Tex, Otis, Trace, Luke, and Mav, the less he believed that he'd been forgotten. Overlooked, maybe. Definitely. Luke had graduated when he and Gabe were freshmen, which meant they lived their last 3 years of high school with just each other. The other 7 brothers were gone, out of the house, living their lives. The band had started very soon after that, and Luke had never known a life where he wasn't country music famous. Morris reminded himself that he'd been drafted into the NFL from his sophomore year of college, and he certainly didn't have room to complain about his life and getting lucky breaks. Of course, then he'd gotten a very unlucky one only a few years later. "Ready?" Trace said, pulling Morris from his memories. He gave his brother a grin and grabbed his cowboy hat from the hook just inside the front door. He usually took off his hat the moment he arrived home and only put it on right when he was leaving. "Great, let's go." They went outside and got in Morris's truck. He had 2 more weddings to attend before this summer ended, and his heart suddenly felt heavy. "Hey, he glanced over to Trace. "What app are you using for the dating? Or were you using?" Trace's eyebrows went up. "You want to use a dating app?" Morris swallowed, because no, he didn't. Trace already knew that. The truth was, he'd seen Tex and Otis fall in love, and he wanted that feeling back in his life. He missed having a companion, a spouse. Not only that, but he was the only young without any children, and he hated how that made him the odd man out. "You miss Leighann," Trace said, real quiet, the way Trace said things that were 100% true. "She won't give me her number," Morris said just as quietly. "Maybe you need to try again." Morris gave an exasperated sigh. "I don't know what that means. I've told her I want to talk to her." "Have you asked her out?" Morris's stomach tightened at the very thought. No. Trace let a block or 2 go by in silence. Then he said, "I think you're not using the right words, Morris." He dang near rolled his eyes, and he definitely wanted to drive them off the road. "I don't know what words to use, Trace. I'm not you or Otis or Tex." He stabbed a glare at his brother's direction. "Or Mav." "Hey, don't lump me in with them," Trace said. He lifted his phone. "I had to use a blasted app because I don't know how to talk to a woman in person." He seemed genuinely upset, and Morris's irritation blew itself out. "You talk to women fine," he said. "You had a great time with Everly."